Hello, welcome to Tech Unplugged.
Great to be here.
So think about how many times today you might have already, seen one of those little square barcodes, maybe on a coffee cup or a menu.
Oh, yeah. They're everywhere now, aren't they?
Absolutely. So today we're going to do a real deep dive into the, surprisingly intricate world of QR codes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to unpack what makes them work, how they cram so much info into that tiny space.
And also touch on some things to maybe watch out for.
Exactly, as these little squares become even more, part of our daily lives.
That's right. Because they look simple, these black and white patterns, but there's a lot of tech packed in there.
Right.
And since they're popping up globally, understanding them both what they can do and maybe where the pitfalls are, it's getting pretty important.
For sure. So at their core, QR codes are about speed, right?
Okay.
That's a QR quick response.
Yep. Designed so your smartphone can read the data almost instantly.
And I mean, pretty much every smartphone camera now just does it automatically. No special app needed most of the time.
Exactly. That convenience is why they're so popular. Payments, info links, you name it.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll get into the nuts and bolts, how they actually function, but also, like you said, shine a light on some of the security stuff that's cropping up.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. When you look at one, what exactly are we seeing?
Well, fundamentally, it's a type of barcode. But, not the lines you see on groceries.
The 1D ones.
Right, the 1D ones. A QR code is a 2D matrix barcode. So think of it like a grid, black squares, they call them modules, arranged in a pattern on a white background.
Okay.
And it's not random at all. It's a very specific system for storing different kinds of information.
So it's not just sending you to a website then. I feel like that's what I use them for most.
That's super common, yeah. URLs are a big use case, but they're way more versatile.
Oh,
They can hold plain text, like maybe a Wi-Fi password, or contact info you can just zap into your phone,
Okay.
or even trigger things like sending an email or a text. The real strength is handling lots of data types in a small, scannable format. And the speed, like you said, the quick response part, is key.
They definitely look more complex than the old line barcodes. What's the advantage of that complexity?
Well, a huge one is just the sheer amount of data they can hold.
Right.
Because they store info horizontally and vertically, unlike 1D codes, which are just horizontal, the capacity is much, much bigger.
How much bigger are we talking?
Oh, potentially thousands of characters, numbers, letters, symbols, way more than a standard barcode could ever handle.
Wow. Okay. That's a significant jump. So all those little squares aren't random. They follow a deliberate structure.
Exactly. Very deliberate. If you look closely, you'll probably notice those three bigger square patterns, usually in three corners.
Yeah, the sort of target-looking things, upper left, upper right, bottom left.
Precisely. Those are called finder patterns. Think of them as anchors or targets, like you said.
Okay. What's their job?
They're absolutely vital. They help your phone's camera or any scanner find the code in the first place and also figure out which way is up, its orientation.
Ah.
And each one has this really specific structure: a 7x7 module dark square on the outside, then a 5x5 light square inside that, and a 3x3 dark square right in the middle.
Okay, very specific.
And the ratio of the light dark widths is always 1.1.3.1.1. That pattern is designed to be super unlikely to show up anywhere else in the data part of the code.
Clever, so the scanner can lock onto them really fast.
Exactly. Makes detection and orientation quick and reliable.
And what about the little white border around those finder squares?
Good eye, that's called a separator. It's just one module wide, pure white space.
It just separates.
Pretty much. It isolates the finder patterns even more, makes it really clear for the scanner to tell them apart from the actual data modules next to them, like giving them a clean margin.
Got it. Finder patterns locate, separators isolate. What else makes up the structure?
Okay, you might also spot lines, running horizontally and vertically, made of alternating black and white squares.
Yeah. Where are those usually?
Typically along the 6th row and 6th column, running between the separators. These are the timing patterns.
Timing patterns. Okay, what do they time? Or what do they do?
They're really useful for the scanner. They help it figure out the grid size, essentially, how densely packed the modules are. And they also help pinpoint the exact coordinates of every single module within that grid. Think of it like an internal ruler or coordinate system for the scanner.
So the scanner uses the finders to locate it, then the timing patterns to map out the grid inside. Makes sense. Anything else structural?
One last key piece: the quiet zone.
Quiet zone. Sounds peaceful.
Huh, yeah. It's basically a border of white space, completely empty around the entire QR code. It needs to be at least 4 modules wide.
And why the empty space? Why is that needed?
It's crucial for preventing misreads. Imagine the QR code is printed near text or another graphic or on a noisy background. The quiet zone ensures those nearby elements don't get accidentally interpreted as part of the QR code's data. It gives the scanner a clear boundary.
Okay, so finder patterns, separators, timing patterns, and a quiet zone. That's actually quite a sophisticated design for something we scan so casually.
It really is.
So how does the actual information, like that website address, get turned into that pattern? How's the encoding work?
Right, the encoding. It's pretty smart. The very first thing the system does is data analysis.
Okay.
It looks at the data you want to put in text, URL, whatever, and figures out the most efficient way to encode it. There are different modes.
Loads.
Yeah, like numeric for just numbers, alphanumeric for letters, numbers, some symbols, byte mode for, well, general bytes, and even kanji mode for Japanese characters.
Ah.
The goal is to pick the mode that makes the final string of bits, the ones and zeros, as short as possible, save space, like just a phone number. Numeric mode is probably best.
So it optimizes right from the start. Smart. What's next after picking the mode?
Then you get to the actual data encoding. This is where the text gets converted into that string of bits using the rules of the chosen mode.
Okay, the ones and zeros.
Yep. And that long string gets chopped up into 8-bit chunks. They call these data code words.
Code words. Got it.
Now, importantly, 2 extra bits of info get added here. First, a mode indicator, just 4 bits telling the scanner which mode was used.
Right, so the scanner knows how to read it back.
Exactly. And second, a character count indicator tells the scanner how many characters are in the data. Its length depends on the QR code version, how big the code is.
Okay, so the data's digital, scanner knows the format and the length. But what about smudges? Or if it gets torn a bit? I've scanned some pretty beat-up-looking codes.
Ah, yes. That's where error correction coding comes in. It's maybe one of the most brilliant parts. It uses something called Reed-Solomon error correction.
Reed-Solomon. Sounds complex.
The maths behind it is, yeah, but the idea is like adding redundant information, extra data calculated from the original data. These are called error correction code words. They allow the scanner not just to detect errors like a smudge or a tear, but to actually correct them.
Wow, really? It can fix itself.
The scanner can, yes. Even if a pretty big chunk of the code is unreadable, sometimes up to 30%. The error correction data can often let the scanner figure out what the missing bits should have been.
30%. That's amazing.
Yeah.
No wonder they still work when they look damaged.
It's a huge reason for their real-world robustness. That coffee spill might not matter.
Incredible. So these error correction bits are like a safety net. What happens after they're generated?
Then you need to structure the final message. You take your data code words and your error correction code words and arrange them in a very specific sequence according to the standard.
Okay.
For bigger QR codes, the data might be split into blocks, each getting its own error correction. Then these blocks get interleaved, kind of woven together.
Interleaved? Why?
It helps spread out potential damage. If you get one big scratch, interleaving means it's likely to damage small parts of many blocks rather than wiping out one entire block. Makes correction easier.
Spreading the risk. Smart. Yeah. And then the final step is putting it all onto the grid.
Exactly. Module placement in Matrix. All those bits, data, error correction, the mode and count info get placed into the grid squares, the black and white modules, following a precise predefined path or pattern.
So the scanner knows exactly where to look for each bit and in what order.
Precisely. It's a very systematic layout.
Okay, that encoding process is seriously intricate. Analysis, encoding, error correction, structuring, placement. Wow. Now, flip side,
Yeah.
how does my phone read it? The decoding.
Well, decoding is pretty much doing all that in reverse.
Makes sense.
First, the scanner uses those finder patterns, the big corner squares, to find the code and get its orientation right.
Okay, locate and orient.
Then it uses the timing patterns, that internal grid, to figure out the coordinates of every single module.
Map it out.
Yep. Then it reads the state of each module, black or white, pulling out all the data and error correction code words from the grid.
And then it checks for damage.
Exactly. It immediately uses those error correction code words it just read. It runs the Reed-Solomon algorithm to check for errors and, if possible, correct them.
Using that redundancy we talked about.
Right. If it successfully fixes any errors or finds none, it moves on.
To getting the actual message back.
Precisely. That's the decode data code word stage. It looks at the mode indicator it read earlier to know the format, numeric, alphanumeric, etc.
Uh-huh.
It uses the character count indicator to know how much data to expect. It then decodes those code words according to the mode, and bang out comes the original text, the URL, the contact info, whatever was put in.
It really is a fascinating round trip, encoding all that structure in, decoding it all back out. Now, I know they don't all look exactly the same. We see the standard square ones, but are there variations, different flavors?
Oh yeah, definitely. There are different versions and types for specific needs. The original one was called QR Code Model 1.
Okay.
It could hold a decent amount, like over 1,000 numbers, maxed out at version 14, which is a 73 by 73 module grid.
And then?
Then came QR Code Model 2, which is mostly what we see today. It's an improvement all around. Much more data, over 7,000 numerals possible.
Wow.
Goes up to version 40, which is a hefty 177 by 177 grid. And a key addition in Model 2 was alignment patterns.
Alignment patterns, different from finder patterns.
Yep. Smaller square patterns located inside the grid, not just the corners. They help the scanner deal with distortion.
Distortionally if it's bent.
Exactly. Printed on a curved bottle, or if you're scanning at a weird angle. Alignment patterns help the scanner adjust and read it accurately, even if the grid isn't perfectly square from its perspective.
So Model 2 is just generally more robust, handles real-world messiness better.
Pretty much, yeah.
What other variations exist?
Well, there's micro QR code.
Smaller, I'm guessing?
Yep. Designed for when space is really, really tight. The trade-off is less data capacity, obviously, and it only has one finder pattern, not 3. And the quiet zone around it only needs to be 2 modules wide, not 4. Saves a bit more space.
Makes sense for tiny applications. Anything else?
There's also a rectangular QR code. Again, name's pretty descriptive. It's for fitting into long, narrow spaces where a square just wouldn't work well, like on the edge of a circuit board or something.
Right. Practical shapes for practical problems now.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen QR codes with, like, a company logo smack in the middle. How do they do that? Is that another type?
Good question. Those are often called logo QR codes or branded QR codes. They're not technically a different type in terms of the underlying standard.
Oh, so how does it work? Doesn't the logo cover up data?
It does,
Yeah.
but they cleverly leverage that error correction capability we talked about. By designing the logo placement carefully and crucially by encoding the QR code with a high level of error correction, remember it can handle up to 30% damage, you can obscure a central portion with the logo. And the code still scans correctly because the error correction fills in the gaps.
That's really smart. Using the redundancy to allow for branding?
Exactly. It's a balance. Make the logo look good, but don't cover up so much that even high error correction can't save it.
Very clever. And what about security? I think I've heard about encrypted ones.
Yes, you can have encrypted QR codes. Again, not really a separate official standard like micro QR, but more an application technique.
So you just encrypt the data before you encode it.
Essentially, yes. The data stream that gets encoded into the QR pattern is itself encrypted using standard encryption methods. Meaning, even if someone scans the code, the data they get out is scrambled garbage unless they have the specific decryption key or password.
I see. So it's for sharing sensitive info, but only with authorized people who know how to decrypt it.
Exactly. Adds a layer of confidentiality.
Okay, so QR codes are clearly super versatile. Speed, data capacity, robustness, even branding and encryption options. Let's just quickly recap the main upsides. Why use them?
Well, number one is that omnidirectional fast scanning. No need to perfectly align it like old barcodes. Huge convenience factor.
Definitely.
Then the small size for the amount of data packs a lot into a little square. Way more efficient than 1D codes.
And the sheer capacity, thousands of characters.
Right. Huge data storage. Plus, handling all sorts of data types, numbers, text, different languages, binary. Very flexible.
And that error correction. Being able to read damaged codes is a massive practical advantage.
Absolutely. Makes them reliable in the real world, not just in a lab.
So convenient, efficient, versatile, resilient. Sounds great. But
yeah.
There's always a but. With them being everywhere, we're hearing more about security risks, this quishing thing. What exactly is quishing?
Yeah, quishing, it's basically QR code phishing. You combine QR code and phishing.
Okay, phishing with a QR code.
Exactly. It's just fraudsters using malicious QR codes to trick people. The goal is the same as regular phishing. steal your sensitive info passwords, bank details, whatever.
How does a typical attack work then?
Well, you encounter a QR code somewhere, maybe in an email, on a poster, even a sticker slapped onto a real sign. It looks legit. You scan it with your phone, expecting to go to, say, a payment site or a login page.
Right.
But instead, the code directs you to a malicious website. It might look identical to the real thing, a fake bank login, fake social media page.
Designed to steal your credentials when you type them in.
Precisely. Or, sometimes even worse, scanning the code might trigger a malware download directly onto your phone, sometimes without you even noticing immediately.
Yikes. That sounds incredibly dangerous.
Yeah?
What makes phishing particularly tricky to spot or defend against?
A big part of the problem is, well, a QR code is just an image, isn't it? Black and white squares.
Yeah. You can't tell what's inside by looking.
Exactly. Unlike a dodgy link in an email where you might hover over it to see the real URL or spot spelling mistakes in the text, you can't visually inspect a QR code for danger.
So it bypasses some of our usual quick checks?
It really does. And many traditional security filters, especially in email systems, are good at analyzing text and links. But if the malicious payload is delivered as an image, the QR code itself, those text-based filters might miss it entirely. It just looks like a picture to them.
Sneaky. So what kind of tricks do the attackers use to get people to scan these bad codes?
Oh, the usual suspects from the phishing playbook, just adapted. Urgency is a big one.
Like,
Your account has suspicious activity, scan here to verify. Or your package delivery failed, scan to reschedule. You know, things that make you act fast without thinking.
right, playing on fear or inconvenience.
Exactly. We've seen reports of fake QR codes slapped on parking meters. People are in a rush. They just want to pay. They scan it. Boom.
Oh, wow. That's bold.
Or maybe too good to be true offers. Scan here for a massive discount. Classic lure.
And if you do fall for it, the consequences can be pretty bad.
Oh, absolutely. Same risks as regular phishing, really. Stolen login details are huge access to email, bank accounts, social media.
Financial theft.
Definitely. Tricking you into entering credit card details on a fake site. Or it could lead to identity theft if they gather enough personal info.
And the malware risk you mentioned.
Yeah, installing spyware, ransomware, banking trojans, all possible just from scanning the wrong code if it triggers a malicious download or exploits a vulnerability.
This isn't just theoretical, right? There have been real-world examples.
Oh, yes. Unfortunately, it's happening more and more. There was a notable campaign using fake Microsoft emails.
What did they do?
Claimed your multi-factor authentication, your MFA, was expiring. The email had a QR code. Scan it, and it took you to a pixel-perfect fake Microsoft login page to harvest your credentials.
Oof, that's clever. Using MFA itself as the lure.
Very insidious.
Yeah.
And we've definitely seen confirmed reports of those parking meter scams.
Right.
Plus, the constant stream of package delivery scams and fake account problem alerts using QR codes as the hook. It's actively being exploited.
It really brings it home how easily someone could get caught out. Okay. So what can we as individuals actually do to protect ourselves?
Caution is number one. Verify the source. Does this QR code make sense here? Who put it here? If it's in an email, do you trust the sender implicitly? If it's on a random poster, be skeptical.
So think before you scan. Don't just react.
Absolutely. If there's any doubt, just don't scan it. It's usually not worth the risk.
Are there any tools? Does my phone's camera app help?
Some dedicated QR scanner apps might offer safety features, like checking URLs against known bad lists. It's worth checking the settings of whatever app you use.
Okay.
But maybe the most important technical tip, if your scanner app allows it, preview the URL before opening it.
So it shows you the web address first.
Some do, yes.
Yeah.
Look closely at that URL. Does it look right? Is it the official domain you expect? Or is it some weird, long, misspelled jumble? Be super critical of that URL.
That seems like a really vital check. What else?
Never, ever enter sensitive info, logins, passwords, credit cards on a site you reached only via a QR code unless you are 110% sure it's legitimate.
How can you be sure?
Look for HTTPS, the padlock. But even those can be fake sometimes. Maybe navigate to the site manually by typing the known address in your browser instead, just to be safe, especially for banking or important logins.
Good point. Don't trust the code implicitly.
And enable two-factor authentication, 2FA, everywhere you can. It's a huge safety net. Even if they steal your password via phishing, they still need that second factor.
Right. 2FA is key.
Also, just be wary of any site asking for personal info right after you scan a code. Why do they need it? Is it justified?
Okay.
And if you do see something suspicious, a weird code on a parking meter, a dodgy email, report it. Tell the company involved, maybe even local authorities if it seems like a public scam.
Great practical advice for individuals. What about organizations, businesses, schools, etc.? What's their role in fighting quishing?
Organizations have a big part to play. First off, education, education, education.
Train your people.
Exactly. Make employees aware of quishing. Show them examples. Teach them the red flags and the safe scanning practices we just discussed. Regular security awareness training is key.
Makes sense. What about tech solutions?
Definitely. Good email security solutions are crucial. Look for ones that can actually inspect images within emails, identify QR codes, extract the URL, and check that URL against threat intelligence feeds.
So catching them before they even land in the inbox.
That's the goal. Block the malicious ones automatically.
Any other internal policies?
Well, it might be wise for organizations not to rely solely on QR codes for their own internal MFA. If employees get too used to scanning QR codes for legitimate work logins all the time, they might develop a bit of, well, scan fatigue or undue trust. They might become less cautious when encountering QR codes in the wild. Mix up authentication methods, perhaps.
Interesting point. Don't normalize scanning too much.
Maybe. And for company-managed mobile devices, Mobile Threat Defense MTD solutions are worth looking at.
MTD.
Yeah, they provide broader security for mobile devices, often including anti-phishing protections that can catch malicious sites, even those reached via QR codes.
So for businesses, train users, use smart email filtering, be thoughtful about internal MFA use, and consider mobile security tools. A layered approach.
Precisely.
Now, thinking about the other side, the people making QR codes, are there things QR code generator platforms can do to build in more safety?
Yes. Thankfully, some are stepping up. Secure platforms offer features that help.
Like what?
Things like custom domain mapping. So instead of the QR code pointing to a generic shortener link, it points to a URL on the company's own verified domain, like qr.yourcompany.com. That helps build user trust.
Okay, identifiable links.
Right. Also, features like single sign-on, SSO integration, so only authorized employees can create codes for the organization. Compliance certifications are important too, things like GDPR for privacy, maybe PIPE if health data is involved, and security standards like ISO 27001. They show the platform takes security seriously.
What about protecting the content behind the code?
Some platforms offer password protection. You scan the code, but then you need a password to actually see the content.
An extra step.
Or age gating for restricted content. These add layers of control. And finally, good branding within the code itself, like we discussed with logo QR codes, can act as a visual cue of legitimacy if users recognize the brand.
So responsible QR code platforms can contribute to a safer ecosystem. That's good to hear.
Definitely.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from the basic structure to encoding, decoding, variations, and now these security threats and protections. To wrap up our deep dive, what are the absolute key takeaways for listeners?
I think the main points are QR codes are powerful, incredibly convenient tools, no doubt about it. They make accessing info super fast. But their growing ubiquity has maybe inevitably opened the door for misuse. Quishing is a real and growing threat we all need to be aware of.
So embrace the convenience, but temper it with vigilance.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to use them, but do be cautious. Apply those safety tips. Check the source, preview URLs if you can, be wary of entering sensitive data, use 2FA.
A moment of thought before scanning can save a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In our connected world, that brief pause for critical thinking is becoming more and more essential, especially with technologies like QR codes that bridge the physical and digital so seamlessly.
That's a perfect final thought. It definitely makes you reconsider how casually we interact with these codes sometimes. Thank you so much for walking us through all of this today. Really insightful.
My pleasure. It's an important topic.